All right, I'm going to make a start. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for coming to today's session on how to create a strong personal brand. I'm going to go through a presentation today. I am then also going to invite you to work with me at the end, and I've got some new products that I've launched that I want to quickly talk about at the very end. And I'm also going to tell you how you can download the slides and today's recording. So I am going to be recording today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk for about 40 odd minutes and take you through the process, the step-by-step process of how to go about building a really good, strong, and powerful personal brand. And then I'm going to, after I've talked about my programs, I'm going to open up the floor, and I'm going to stay as long as people want me to stay this after this, just to kind of, if you've got any questions or any kind of challenges that you're having regarding your brand or trying to figure out what you are and how that all works, then I'm happy to stay on afterwards. So let's crack into it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see the screen? Give me a thumbs up. Cool. All right. Okay, so as I said, we're going to talk about how to go about creating a strong personal brand. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jonathan Maltby, and I am a branding coach, and I specialize in professional identity and personal branding. Been doing this for probably about going on 8 years now, and I run my own coaching practice. Okay, so for the most part, just to start off with, I usually use this slide to indicate the kind of path that many of us take in our careers. We start off with maybe, leaving high school, going on and enrolling in a university course or doing some form of formal education or tertiary education once we leave. And then, can I just ask people just to kind of mute their microphones in the meantime? That's great. Cool. So once you finish your university or whatever graduate studies you then tend to go and find your first graduate role, and then you go to a junior role, mid, senior, executive, etc., etc. Now you may change career a few times, or your career makes some twists and turns along the way, but for the most part, most people's careers tend to look like this road here. My career looks nothing like that. In fact, my career looks more like this. And I actually took this photo about 3 and a bit years ago when I was traveling through a beautiful part of the world called Transylvania. Yep, that's where Dracula supposedly comes from. So I was traveling through Romania, and we were going through this winding pass through the Carpathian Mountains. And this stretch of road is called the Transfăgărășan. And those of you who used to watch Top Gear back in the day, they actually took some really mean sports cars around these winding roads. And it's about 90 kilometers. And we got to the top of this pass, and I was sitting there, and we got out of the car, and I was having kind of one of those reflective moments and going, wow, this path here, or this road looks a lot like my career. Because since the year 2000, I've changed career. Well, actually 1995, I've changed career 9 times. That's not 9 different jobs. That's 9 separate careers that I've had. I started off as an electronics engineer, and I didn't really enjoy that very much. So I went back to university, and I did a 4-year degree and became a high school teacher. And I loved teaching. That was amazing. After teaching high school students, I decided to go and teach some adults. And I taught adults for a while, and that was all good. And then I thought, you know what, I want to take a bit of a break from teaching, and I want to do something a little bit different. And I'm really interested in sales. So I managed to convince someone to take me on as a sales consultant. And I did sales for a few years and got really, really good at that. So I kind of learned the intricacies and the process of how a sale is made. I then moved up into a marketing role, and that was great fun because I learned what branding was all about and marketing. I then went and did a few other roles after that, and then got into recruitment. And that was really good because that's basically selling people, which is technically what recruitment is. I'd find a candidate, work out what they are, and then sell them into a company, and I'd get paid for it. And that's typically what recruitment is. But it was during my time in recruitment that I started to get quite frustrated with the industry because everybody was working for the client. No one was actually helping the candidates be better. And during my job in recruitment, one of the biggest things that I learned was that it wasn't the person who had the most experience, expertise, knowledge, education that won the role at the end of the day. It was the person who had the strongest brand, the person who could not only talk about their brand, but could, you know, kind of talk about the value that they could bring to a company. So you get two people coming in for a job. One's clearly got more experience than the other, but the other one could actually talk about themselves a lot better. They knew who they were. They'd become authorities on themselves. And so I started realizing, hey, you don't have to have the best education, the most experience, the most expertise. You just got to be able to get good at talking about yourself. And that means having a fundamental understanding of your professional identity. So getting back to this picture, what I realized that every time my career took a twist and a turn, I had to take a step back and reevaluate, what am I actually selling here? And for every twist and turn also, I needed to rebrand myself as I reinvented myself. Now, fast forward, another 20 years to where I am now. As I said, I run a coaching practice where I help people build epic careers. And what that entails is helping people define their professional identity. And I'm actually going to talk about this quite a bit today. And part of defining your professional identity means figuring out what your unique strengths and skills are. So we do the unpacking, we unpack you, figure out all the different components of what makes you, you, in other words, from a professional perspective, and then repackage you and create a powerful brand. But around that, we also need to create a visibility strategy, because there's not point just having a brand when no one actually gets to find out about you. Because we want to be able to build a brand so that you can attract career opportunities. I always say, build your brand and you never have to write another cover letter again, because those job opportunities are going to come and find you. But what it is really at the end of the day is kind of helping people gain a greater sense of clarity on who and what they are as professionals. Maybe change their perspective around their careers, or re-energize their careers if they're feeling like they're drifting or stagnating, or maybe their career's been on autopilot. But the most important thing is helping people gain a greater professional identity, or professional self-awareness, helping them become more aware of themselves so that they can better promote and market themselves. Okay, what I want to do now very, very quickly is I want to stop sharing this screen for a second, go back onto here, and I want you to, just in the chat window, if you don't mind, who of you feels here that, and either do a yes or a no, can answer the question, so tell me about yourself, with confidence and clarity. So just put a yes or a no in there. If you feel, hey, I can nail this, don't worry, I'm not going to get you to do it. But if you feel, yep, you can do that, that's excellent. So we're getting a few no's, a few yeses. That's good. Because really, it is one of the most difficult questions to answer. That's good. Yep, people are coming in. No-ish. Yep, that's good. That's good. Sometimes. Yep, that's right. Okay, cool. Not yet. I like that. Thanks, Belle. Not yet, but I like the optimism there. All right, cool. Let me go back into sharing my screen again. All right. Can we all see the screen back again? Excellent. All right. So yes, this is kind of like the most difficult question to answer, the so tell me about yourself question. And for a lot of us, the reason that it is because there's two major factors that get in the way of us answering this question. The first one is our modesty. We've been taught from a very young age that talking about ourselves is wrong. So when we are confronted with this question, we really feel awkward going, hang on a second, I don't feel this is right to be talking about myself. So, we don't do a good enough job of it because it just feels weird. And the second reason is because many of us lack that professional self-awareness. We don't know what we're supposed to be saying when somebody does ask this question. And really what's happening is when someone says, so tell me a bit about yourself, either in a social setting or in a professional setting, such as a job interview, what they're saying is, hey, give me the verbal representation of your personal brand. That's really what it is. So Having worked with like well over 300 people over the last number of years, one of the biggest common issues that I've seen people experience when it comes to their branding and their careers is they lack that professional self-awareness. They really struggle to understand who and what they are as professionals. And that kind of has a big ripple-on effect. It means that they struggle to communicate their brand, and they're unaware in many cases of their career blind spots. Now, everybody has career blind spots. These are things that exist, but we can't actually see them because they are outside our field of vision. And what I found is that our career blind spots typically sit in two key categories. One, our capabilities. We have a vague understanding what we're good at, but we don't actually spend the time really going into the depths to find out what makes us awesome in a professional sense. And the second thing that is in our blind spots is our value. Many times we don't actually know what makes us valuable. And our value is really around the use of those capabilities, but more importantly, what those capabilities that we have can mean for an organization or a business. As a result of this lack of professional self-awareness and these blind spots, we tend to confuse our audience. So how many times, when you've delivered an elevator pitch and you walk away going, oh, darn, if only I'd said that, that could have changed the outcome of the conversation. Maybe I would have got a call back from that recruiter. Because if we're confused about our brand, imagine how difficult it is for other people to understand who and what we are. Again, that has a ripple-on effect because people tend to undersell themselves. If they don't know what their capabilities and value is, they undersell themselves. And I see this time and time again. I'm willing to bet there are people sitting on this Zoom call right now that are in jobs far below their capability and getting paid far below what they truly deserve. And the reason for this is because they have undersold themselves. And I know there's people on here that are probably going, yep, that sounds a bit like me right now. And in many cases, people tend to undersell themselves by so much that they get paid at least $20,000 less than what they should be on. You see? That causes us to miss career opportunities. If we can't communicate our brand, this can have a detriment on our career and it costs us money. Okay, so what is this whole thing called personal branding exactly? Well, for me, personal branding is really kind of an umbrella term that has a number of different components that sit underneath it. It's about our unique skills, what we bring to the table, our capabilities, in other words. It's about what makes us valuable as well. It's about how we project ourselves, our image, our presence. And I don't just mean our physical image, the image that people have of us in their heads when they think about us. It's about how we position ourselves in the market. In other words, where do we fit within the industry? It's also about building, managing, and maintaining our reputation. And it's about going, okay, I'm going to take myself and I'm going to productize and I'm going to package myself. It's how you create your brand message, in other words. Now, the next part, and this is where a lot of people really kind of get stuck with because of the modesty, is how they go about marketing themselves as well. So that's part of your brand, is your marketing techniques, your own self-marketing techniques. So if I had to kind of distill personal branding down into its core elements, this is what it is. Personal branding is about creating a unique personal identity around your leading attributes. It is then managing the perception of your audience in order to make them feel a certain way about who you are and what you do. But we're really going to be focusing on identity and perception management today. Look, ladies and gents, at the end of the day, personal branding is really about your story, okay? It's about leveraging off your story in order to grow and accelerate your careers. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of an exercise for you now that I want you all to participate in. We all want to get a bit of an idea of where our brands currently sit. So a very simple thing that I want you all to do very, very quickly is to Google yourself. So don't lose these windows. Make sure you can still bring them up, but maybe on your device or anything else like that, just Google you, okay? Cool. Don't forget to check out the images tab of your Google. See what images you come up for. For some reason, I've still got images locked in MySpace from years ago. Cool. Now I'm going to ask you 4 questions based on the results of your search for you. The first question, and just have a think about this. The first question is, does your digital footprint tell your true professional story? Or is it a different story on every single channel that comes up? So maybe in your Facebook, you're positioning yourself as one thing. On your LinkedIn, it's another. Maybe on Twitter, you're something else. Maybe you've got your own personal web page and there is no consistency in message. That's the first thing. The second thing is it a lot of words on a page? Or do you feel that what you've come up for really captures what you're all about in terms of the essence of your brand? The second thing is your message, whatever you've put on there, the text that you come up for, is your message clear or is it vague and confusing? Am I going to know who you are and what you do as a professional? Okay. Or am I going to walk away from there going, well, I'm seeing so many different conflicting messages. I'm going to put this person in the too hard basket because I don't really know what they are. The third thing is your brand compelling enough for people to want to seek you out? So if you go and look at your LinkedIn profile, do you feel it captures who you are, what you do, what makes you unique, your process, the thing that you do that makes you stand out, the value that you can bring to an organization? Does it talk about your career journey? Or is it, again, very vague? You see, vagueness is the biggest enemy of a strong personal brand. Okay. So if I come onto your LinkedIn profile, am I going to see something that is compelling enough to say, I need to have this person in my network, they're valuable? Or if you're trying to connect with somebody else and they jump on your profile, is what you're telling worth them connecting to? And the fourth thing is, do the results portray you in the way you need to be perceived? Because remember what I said, personal branding is about perception management. So if you're wanting to grow your career and you have a career goal in mind, then you need to be perceived as someone who can be in that position. And that's all about how you create the language around your brand as well. So it's about perception management. Okay, I want to talk very quickly before I get into the formula of how to create your brand and the 4-step process. I want to talk a little bit about what a good, strong brand can actually do for you. And I've seen this time and time again. These are actual things from my clients. So the first thing is that going through the process of defining your brand, unpacking yourself, can actually have a profound effect on your self-confidence, because it allows you to first and foremost become an authority on you. That's the biggest thing about a brand can do for you, is it can actually help you gain clarity on who you are and what you do. Just the exercise of deconstructing yourself. And I'll take you through that process in a minute. And I've seen people who have come to me feeling pretty low about themselves, but walk out going, wow, I did not realize how much capability I had. Now that I can see it all in front of me, and it's all in a great brand story, it's done wonders for my self-confidence. And people realize that in many cases, they've been pitching themselves too low. And this helps them turn up the dial and pitch themselves at the right level that is appropriate for their experience and expertise and value. The next thing it does is it actually gives you control. When you have a greater understanding of your brand, it gives you more control over your career. I love to help people stop in their tracks and become more conscious of their careers and themselves from a professional sense. Because really what you want to do to have a great career, you need to stop and you need to consciously and strategically design the career that you want, because so many people drift in their careers. They're on autopilot, or they don't make good career decisions because they don't know what their brand and professional identity is. And so many times people stunt their career, they take sideways steps, or at worst go backwards. So this allows you to take control of your career. The next thing it does is it also positions you as an expert in your field. We call these subject matter experts, okay? Because we want to understand where in your experience is your greatest depth of expertise, because that's what we want to amplify. Not all of your skills, but your key areas of expertise. There's skills and there's expertise. That's a deeper level of skill. Okay. And when you can position yourself as that expert, well, that helps you build credibility and people have put more trust in you as well. We trust the experts, so to speak. The next thing it also does is it gives you that competitive edge. Okay. The minute that you learn to talk about yourself and answer that question, so tell me about yourself, well, that gives you that keeps you ahead of a competition because so many people struggle with that question. And that brand can give you that competitive edge. As I mentioned earlier on, it wasn't always the person who had the most skills, experience, and expertise that won the role. It's the one who had the strongest brand and could communicate it. Okay, the next thing it does is it gives you the power of influence. You see, when you're seen as that subject matter expert, you become influential. People look up to you. And we call these people thought leaders as well. And look, a power of influence could be the power to influence people's behaviors, their actions, their thoughts, their opinions. And you know what? People want to be influenced. They don't want to be manipulated, but that's what we want. That's how we learn from a lot of people. So they have influence. And you could also have influence on key decision makers within a business as well when you have a strong brand. And the last thing it does, it allows you to attract exciting career opportunities. And I know there's people sitting on this call right now who have in the past maybe been approached for a job. The job has come and found you instead of you going to look for the job because you've gotten yourself known. As I said, you know, a lot of people go out looking for their dream job, but I say, you know, build your brand, get known, you know, become that person of influence and have those job opportunities come to you instead. All right. Now that I've kind of taught you what a brand is and I've taught you the advantages of having a good, strong brand, I'm going to take you through the process of creating one. And this is a process that I've used time and time again to help my clients understand themselves and build their brand and communicate it. So the first step in communicating your brand is really defining that professional identity, because you can't brand yourself until you know exactly what it is you are branding. This is the fun part, actually. This is the unpacking of you and going, right, what am I? And this is the fundamental foundation for your brand is your professional identity. What are you exactly? I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. As part of the unpacking process, we've also got to define, okay, what is my goal? Because your brand is really going to become the vehicle to help you attain your goals a lot quicker. The other thing you want to think about is, okay, so how do I need people to perceive me so that I can supercharge my vehicle, in other words? The next thing we need to do is we need to start reconstructing you back together again. So once we've figured out our identity, our goal and perception, we need to now start putting it all back together again in a brand message. Now, this is a carefully and strategically curated message. It doesn't tell everybody everything about you, okay? It's a focused message. And the last thing as part of this process is we want to actually create a visibility strategy, because there's no point creating a brand if no one gets to find out about it. And I'm going to take you through each one of these processes now. So it starts off with figuring out what am I, and this is your professional identity. And there are 6 parts to your identity. Okay. And when I work with people, these are the 6 parts we focus on. The first thing is, what am I going to call myself? I've got to come up with a title or a name for myself, because you want to make it as easy for people as possible to get their head around you. Okay, because the human brain likes to work with labels. It's how we make sense of our world. If we know what something is and what something's called, we can probably use it more because we know what its function and purpose is. And so many times people are really, really vague around this. And there were times when I'd be interviewing people back in my days of recruitment going, at the end of the interview going, what a lovely person, but I don't know who and what they are. I'm really struggling to get my head around them. And those people miss out on opportunities because I can't sell them into a company. So you want to figure out, what am I going to call myself? Okay. Now, the biggest danger here is a lot of people brand themselves according to their job title. You are not your job title. You are not your job, and you are not the company you work for. Your brand needs to transcend that. It needs to be bigger than that. Because I've seen so many people who have been in jobs for so long that when that job is no longer there through some circumstances, they cut adrift. They're going, I don't know how to define myself anymore. Everything was based around that job. So a simple label could be, I'm a graduate accountant. Boom, I don't have to imagine what you are. Or I'm a user experience designer. Or I'm a senior digital marketing professional. Something easy for people to get their head around. So that's the first thing you want to do. Figure out what and who are you. The next key component of your professional identity is going, all right, what is it that I actually do? Okay. And I think it's really important that we put what we do in context. So a good way to think about what you do is to think about what are the problems that you solve for people or organizations, because this is going to help you get some context. So let's look at this in a little bit more detail. What do I do exactly? Well, the first thing is you want to figure this out because what you really do at the end of the day determines your value to an organization. That's the first thing. And when you know your value, one, you can better position yourself in the market. And two, you can define your worth in terms of salary and rates. If you get stuck knowing how much you're worth when you are applying for a job, and this is where people undersell themselves because they don't understand their value, what you can help you, how you can help a business be better or a person become better. Now, there's two aspects to look at how to define what you do. The first one is, hey, what do I fill my day with? What are the key activities that I fill my day with? But more importantly, what does this produce? You see, ladies and gents, at the end of the day, people don't care really what you do. They care what you can do for them. And that's how we can brand ourselves, not by what we do, but the outcome that we can help businesses achieve. And this makes it easier for us to talk about ourselves. This is where we can do the humble brag. Instead of saying, hey, I do all these cool things, it's a case of, no, I help businesses achieve these outcomes. So let's work on a little formula here. I'm going to throw a little bit of maths in here, a little bit of algebra in here. And if people are thinking, oh no, what's he going to do? All right, so how do we figure out what we do? Well, let's say that X represents all the key things that we do during our day at work, all the key activities. It could be meetings, it could be drafting proposals, it could be dealing with customers, it could be emails, all the things that you go into a day or a week. Now you want to think, okay, so what do these X things that I do actually mean for the business? So you want to project this out a few steps. So if I do X, the business takes my X and they do Y with my X. So my X enables the business to do Y. So you're trying to figure out where do you fit? And as a result of them doing Y, you want to project that out a little bit further and go, well, as a result of them doing Y, they can now achieve Z. You want to figure out what is the Z that you play a part in helping the business achieve. What are the outcomes? Okay, that's what we want to try and figure out. So let me give you some examples here. Now, these are actual statements that I've worked with my clients to create. Okay, the first one is this one here. As an experienced designer, I enhance a business's online capabilities and create processes for users to better interact with the organization and their products and services. Can you see how specific this is? But one of the things that's lacking, and this is deliberate, is I'm not telling them what a UX designer does during the day. I don't talk about prototyping. I don't talk about wireframing. I don't talk about research, information architecture. No. I'm talking about the end result. I enhance a business's online capabilities. Excellent. Now, here's one I created for a CTO for an organization, but we didn't want to call him a CTO because that's his job title. If he moves jobs, he might not be a CTO anymore. So what we did look at him is what is the umbrella that he fits under? And it's really a business management professional. I help organizations scale and can future-proof them through business optimization, IT and business strategy, resource and financial management. We didn't talk about the things he filled his day with. We talked about the fact that he helps organizations scale and future-proofs them. And the last one here is for recruiters. And this is one that I created for a number of recruiters. As a talent acquisition professional, I help businesses solve their biggest problems by using strategies that attract key people, with the right skills and attributes so that they can help the business win in the market. Basically, what the business does is attract the right people to help that business win in the market. Okay, we focused on the outcome. All right, the third part that we want to look at now as part of our professional identity is our area of specialization. And this is what separates us. This is what helps us stand out, is figuring out what's my zone? What am I not good at, but exceptional at? And one of the biggest things that I get my clients to do when I work with them is I have a golden rule when we work together. You've got to leave your modesty at the door. You have to suspend it temporarily while we do these exercises, because if you're going, oh, I really shouldn't be saying that, well, then you're not letting an organization experience the true benefit. So when you come to doing this exercise, suspend your modesty for a bit. Okay, so we want to figure out what is your area of specialization. In other words, where do you have the greatest depth of interest and experience? All right, so specialization. Look, a specialist is perceived to be a high value bracket. They fit into a high value bracket with an organization. Each and every, if any of you have ever had to go for a specialist for a medical appointment where your GP has referred you on to a specialist, you know it's going to cost you a lot more than that GP's visit. In fact, you know that you could be spending thousands of dollars. And that's because a specialist charges a lot more than a generalist. We trust specialists. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to start positioning and packaging yourself as that high value asset for a company. So you want to think of three things now as you figure out your specialization. Where is your greatest depth of experience and expertise? The next thing is, what aspect are you most passionate about? You don't want to specialize in something that you're good at, but not necessarily sparking that joy, so to speak. Okay, you want to think, what do I love doing and what am I good at doing, and finding the intersection between those. And the third component is, what does the market need? Don't specialize in something that no one needs. Now, it's good to be niche, but you don't want to go too niche. Okay, so go niche, but be conscious of that. Okay, so let me do an exercise for you here. All right, the first thing is, imagine that this was your role, and this is one I did for a digital marketing consultant, okay? So we kind of dissected the main components of their role, and it was production and process design, social media marketing, event design and management, marketing operations management, and brand management. So this was an actual person that we worked with, okay? And we wanted to look at, okay, so where do you have the greatest depth of skill and experience in all of this area? And we found out that this person had maybe a couple of years of production and process design. Yeah, nothing much there. Social media marketing. Yes, they've started to build some good legs in this now. And yep, they've got quite a bit under their belt. Event design and management. Yeah, about 10 years experience in this, knows it like the back of their hands, can run an event start to finish, no problem. Marketing operations management. Yep, got a little bit of that. And brand management. Yeah, not so much. All right, what does logic tell us where we should specialize? Well, logic tells us that because I've got the most skills and experience here, I should specialize in this area now, okay? But here's the fundamental problem. Just because you're good at it doesn't mean to say you should specialize in it, okay? Because I know so many people who are miserable in what they do, even though they're good at what they do. And the reason is because they specialized in something that doesn't actually give them joy and excitement. So that means we need to look at this one here, which is social media marketing for this person. This person, whilst they didn't have the depth of experience as the other one, they built enough to know that they're passionate about it, and that is where they want to focus their area on. So just to recap, to specialize, you want to find the intersection between your passion and your skills. Now, one other thing quickly, the opposite of the specialist is the jack of all trades, the generalist. And these are the most loveliest, but the most difficult people to work with. Why? Because they don't fit into an easy to manage box, even if you're designing your own box. And I remember when I was in recruitment and I would deal with people, I'd say, okay, so what are you positioning yourself as? What are you exactly? And they will go, you know, I'm a bit of a jack of all trades. I'm a little bit of this, and I've got some of this, and I've got this, and this. And I would go, oh my God, this is just too confusing. I just need you to do this. And those people would often miss out on career opportunities because I would have to try and fill in the gaps of what they were. And jack of all trades are vague. You want to be out of that jack of all trades and try and figure out, where do you have the most impact? What is your area of specialization? All right, the next part is we want to figure out, cool, what is our core strengths and skills? Think of these as the tools that you use to solve the problems, okay? Think of these are the tools that you use in your toolbox every day that you turn up to work with. And again, I said it's really important that you put things in context. You don't want to be, as part of your brand, telling everybody exactly what all of your tools are. No, you just want to talk about the specific tools that allows you to solve those problems that you love to solve for organizations, and the tools that allow you to specialize. This might mean that you're cutting a whole lot of those skills out of your LinkedIn profile, because you can have 50 skills in your LinkedIn profile, but you don't want to know everybody to know all of your skills, only the ones that are relevant. Another thing that you want to do is you want to figure out what value you bring to an organization as well. What makes you valuable? Why should people care? Now, here's how you can create what I call your value statements. And there's a 3-part formula to this. Okay. The first thing you want to figure out is, what is the problem you solve? Plus, what is your capability to solve that problem? That's your skills. And most importantly, what result can you help them achieve? The problem, your capability to solve this, and what outcome you can produce. That is what you figure out what makes you valuable, and you want to build that into your brand message. And the last part you want to figure out is, what is your goal? How do you want people to figure out, to perceive you? Okay, so now let's go on to that part there, the defining the goal and the perception. All right. Your brand is not what you say it is. It's what other people perceive it to be. And you want to be able to shape that perception through the experience that people have when dealing with you. So you have to think, what experience do I want people to have when they interact with me? So let's talk about this. Every action you take, every interaction that you have with people, and the words that you use do one of two things. It either reinforces our brand or it detracts from our brand. It can take years to build a strong brand and get known. This is not a rushed process, but it can take literally minutes to destroy all that hard work that you've put into it. And we've seen this so many times with celebrities in the media, for example, totally trash their brand, and many of them never actually come back from it. Whilst they rebuild their careers, we always associate them with that thing that destroyed their brand. So people with strong brands are always conscious. Okay. So when you think, how is the perception that I want people to have of me, and how will this influence my behavior, my actions, and my language? Cool. The next thing we want to do is we want to start figuring out our brand story. So we've defined who we are, we've figured out our perception and the goal, and now we want to stop reconstructing ourselves back together again. All right, here we go. Through the process of deconstruction, we figured out all the things we've done. We might maybe figure out a few areas that we could specialize in. We've got all of our skills and capabilities. We've got maybe some potential labels, plural, that we may want to use. And we know what our goals is. Now, what you want to do is you don't want to put all of this in your brand message. Otherwise, you become that jack of all trades and you become vague. We want to select the key parts of this. All right, this is the curated story of you, not your whole story. And it's usually based around your goal. So if you go, right, I'm a senior manager, but I want to get into executive management now, for example, that's my goal. I need to start branding myself as executive management material. Don't brand yourself from where you've come from necessarily. Brand yourself where you want to go. So you'll choose the key components here that align with your goal, okay? So for me to get this goal, I need to be positioning myself as this. I need to be saying, this is my specialist area, and these are my relevant skills. And that's how we package ourselves. Now, the key thing about packaging yourself is put your audience at the center of your message. Remember, it's not about you, it's about what you can do for others. And this allows us to talk about ourselves much more comfortably and beat our chest by making our message about them. Cool. The last part we want to do now is we want to start developing and implementing a visibility strategy. That's the most important thing. And you can do this as an introvert or an extrovert. Doesn't really matter. Find one that works for you. But I want to tell you why it's important to have a visibility strategy. I'm going to talk about the Nike story here for a bit. In 1978, Nike came up with the Nike Tailwind shoe. And for those sneaker aficionados, some of you will know this story. So in 1978, what they did was they borrowed some technology from NASA, or so the story goes. And they created a pouch, okay? And they filled this pouch with these dense gases. What they did next is they hollowed out the midsole of the shoe and they put these dense pouch inside that shoe, because the concept was, hey, walking on this shoe is going to provide you with superior air cushioning. Fantastic. The thing is that people had to believe the marketing hype that Nike was putting out, that this technology actually existed inside the shoe, because it was sealed up inside the sole. And look, sales went all right for this shoe, but then in 1987, there came out a sneaker that revolutionized everything that we knew. They came out with the Air Max 1. And the biggest thing that set the shoe apart from anything else was they put a little window in the side of the sneaker in the sole. And for the first time, people could actually see the technology. They didn't have to believe it was there. They could actually see it. They could touch it and go, you know what? They were right the whole time. There is this superior cushions that I'm walking on right now. Wow. And what happened to sales? It went into the billions. So what I'm trying to tell you here is you need to give a visibility strategy, because when you become visible, you become valuable. I'll say that again. When you become visible, you become valuable. And we live in an era right now where there are so many great strategies that we can use to help us amplify our brand. So you want to get good at talking about yourself, answering that question, so tell me about yourself. That's where it starts. Now, we're in lockdown for many of us right now, so meetups are a little bit hard to go to, but there's a lot of online Zoom networking events. That's a great way to talk about your brand and get known. Social media is another good way. Social media is also really good for introverts, because you don't actually have to deal with people. You're just dealing with a screen half the time. And the same thing, making video content as well. Blogging is another great one. Having your own website is another great one. You know, having a good solid LinkedIn profile, creating content in LinkedIn positions you as that subject matter expert and also helps to increase your visibility as well. All right. There's no excuse for not raising your voice now. All right. The next thing, to conclude. All right. To conclude, here we go. Define your professional identity, unpack yourselves. Figure out those 6 key components. Okay, if you want to go through these slides again, I'm going to send you the link at the end. All right, you want to become an authority on you first. The next thing, always be conscious of the perception that you are creating, your actions, interactions, and the words. What experience do you want to create for people who interact with your brand? And lastly, a strong personal brand could literally mean the difference between an ordinary career or one that is truly epic. As I always say, your brand is the carefully constructed story of you. If you don't take control of your brand, if you don't tell your own story, then you're leaving it to somebody else to do that for you. And that's what you don't want. All right, well, we've come to the end of this presentation. Before I go into some Q&A, I just kind of want to talk about some of the services that I offer and how I help people. So what I do is I do one-on-one hourly consults. I have been jam-packed with those over the last few months. If there's something, you have one burning question or you just want to sort one particular problem out, then sometimes we can do that in an hour or more. I also run 3 in-depth personal branding programs. This is where we really get into the things that I was talking about today. And I will lead you through a very structured process of unpacking you, figuring out what your professional identity is, figuring out your goals, the perception that you want people to have of you, repackaging you with a really strong, powerful brand message, and then also helping you communicate that. Now, I've got 3 programs, a basic, a standard, and a premium. I also help people with interview preparation. So if you've got an interview coming up and you're not feeling too confident, well, this can really help build that confidence with you so that you can walk in there owning that interview. I also do CV and LinkedIn makeovers. So if you've been applying for lots of jobs and getting lots of rejections and not even getting to interview stage, well, that could mean that there's something wrong with your CV. If you're not getting people reaching out to you on LinkedIn, well, that means that your message on LinkedIn is not compelling enough or it's vague. And I also run 2 new programs, which I'm going to talk about as well, very, very quickly, because I'm conscious of the time and I want to get into the Q&A as well. Okay, right now, we all know that the job market is fiercely competitive and it's only going to get worse, especially as there's, look, I don't want to preach doom and gloom here, but I'm seeing a lot of my clients who are being made redundant and they're seeing how competitive that job market is. And it's survival of the fittest out there. And as I said right at the beginning, it's no longer the person who has the most skills and experience and expertise that lands the role. It's the one who has the authority on themselves and can promote and market themselves the best. So my programs are designed to transform you into the fittest and the best of the pack. So the first program I want to talk about here right now is a new one that I've launched. I've been running this for the last 3 weeks solid with people, and it's the Authentic Self-Marketing Program. And basically it's designed to help you promote and market yourself in a genuine and powerful way. Okay. And I'm going to guide you through the process so that you can create your own sales message that you can use in your CV, in your LinkedIn, when you talk about yourself as well. And here's how it works. Okay. The program is for those who are struggling to understand and communicate who you are and what makes you valuable. And we spoke about that today. If you struggle to answer that question, so tell me about yourself. If you've had your employment affected by these lockdowns and the pandemic, then seriously have a look at this, okay? It'll help you boost your confidence to better sell yourself. That's been the biggest thing that the people over the last few weeks have told me when they've done this program. It has boosted my confidence. I have so much clarity. It also helps you gain that competitive edge. And you'd want to become a preferred candidate for a hiring manager and a recruiter. Having been a recruiter myself, I know exactly what you need to say and do to be able to work with them, okay, to beat that competition. But also help you make better career decisions for when looking for roles as well. You'll know what a good opportunity looks like and what a distraction looks like at the end, okay? I want to tell you a little bit of a story about Candy Boyson. Candy, I took her through this program in August last month. Candy was working as a senior level marketing manager in a global retailer. She said, after leaving this position, I found myself with a surprising lack of confidence and clarity as to what I could offer a business. I opted to go on this collaborative journey of personal branding with Jonathan and tremendously enjoyed the time together. We spent time clarifying my knowledge and experience and how it can be a huge asset to the right business. I was helpful to ascertain exactly who my target market was as a candidate when applying for roles. She said, I learned how I could position myself as a solution to a business problem, a very useful insight. I walked away from my final interaction with clear direction, clarity, and confidence as I move towards the next step in my career. I'm so grateful that I took this opportunity to invest in myself, as the benefits have far exceeded my expectations. Straight after she finished this, within 2 weeks, she started as the marketing manager for another global retailer during this pandemic time. So how does it work? Well, we do 3 one-on-one sessions, approximately 5 hours in contact time. I'm doing it all through Zoom right now. So in the first session, we're going to do a lot of your branding sort of stuff. We're going to unpack you. We're going to figure out what your capabilities are, your area of authority, the problems that you fix for businesses, what makes you valuable. But we're also going to look at your formula, how you do what you do, because that's the biggest thing that we need to sell, our process, our magic formula that takes those businesses from points of pain to points of gain. And we're going to look at your label. In the second session, we work together, you and me, and we will create your own personal sales message. Now, it's a genuine and authentic sales message that you feel confident in talking about. And in the third session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a follow-up. We're going to tweak your message and cover anything that you think we missed out on. All right. So how does it work? Typically, my personal branding programs start at $1,800 and go upwards. However, the investment in this particular program is $995. Okay, so that's like $800 cheaper my next product. Okay, but because I understand there's a lot of people who've been financially impacted by COVID right now, I've knocked $200 off it. Okay, so it's $795 for these 3 sessions. Okay, now here's the kicker. If you're one of the first 3 people to say, Jonathan, I want to get started on this program, I'm going to knock another $100 off, okay? But it expires in 24 hours time. If you want to discuss this, have it reach out to me from that email I'm going to send you this afternoon, okay? That goes from $995 to $695, but expires 24 hours from now, okay? Then it goes back up to $795. All right, last person that I took through, this was Misa. Misa, she works in marketing. Misa said, during our time together on my personal brand, Jonathan helped me tremendously in determining my personal brand and how to communicate it effectively. At the end of the process, I could confidently say that I aced every job interview and professional chats that came my way. Ultimately, I landed a new job in a global company in the industry I wanted in the middle of this crisis. Okay, remember I said I had 2 programs? Last program, very, very quickly. It's called the Migrant Job Search. If you're a new migrant into Australia and you have been struggling to land your first role, okay? If people have said, sorry, you don't have local experience, then this is the program to help you. We're gonna do an Aussify of your job search, because in many cases, people who come from overseas use the techniques that they use from overseas to find a job in Australia, and this is the biggest problem. We've got to Aussify your job search. And I've actually teamed up with a really good colleague of mine, Vinesh Balan. And Vinesh has been through his own migrant journey, and now he works with migrants to help them navigate the job market here in Australia, okay? And what he's gonna do is when we start the program, he's gonna do a first 1 hour with you to basically triage your job seeking process. He's gonna troubleshoot your tactics. He's gonna help you develop some strategies. But most important, Vinesh is going to also help you with the right mindset for a successful job search. And he's worked with so many people. He runs meetup groups. He does so much interesting stuff and blogs all the time. Definitely a guy to follow. Once you've done that hour triage with him, I'm going to step in and we're going to start Aussifying your CV. We're going to create an Australian version of a CV. We're going to look at the language that you use. And I don't mean saying the word mate after every sentence. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the style that a successful Australian CDV needs to have. And this is me going back to my recruitment days. Okay, then we're going to make a compelling message for you in your LinkedIn profile as well. And I'm also going to do a 1 hour interview coaching session with you. I'm going to help you gain your confidence in your interviewing. Okay. Now I know a lot of other people are charging mega for this, well over $1,000. But because we're doing this time and I really want to help people, Vinesh and I are offering this for $600, okay? This goes in as a package. We're not splitting the package up into anything else like that. The price is not up for negotiation. It's a fixed price of $600. All right, we've come to the end now. How do you get the slides for this? What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you an email this afternoon. It's going to have a link to the video from today's recording and to the slides as well, plus an invitation in there to work with me. Okay, if you want to take advantage of the Authentic Self Branding Program, the $695 for the next 24 hours, $795 after that, or if you're a migrant wanting to look at that package, then I'm gonna help you with that as well. Okay, so watch out for that email coming this afternoon. Whew, okay. We're finished. How's everyone going? Have I blown your minds enough? Jump on if you want. Any questions? I'm gonna have a glass of water. Feel free to ask any questions now if you want, around your brand or anything around that sort of stuff there, go for it.
I've got a question for you, Jonathan. I mean, as a multi-potentialite yourself, you know, as opposed to a jack of all trades, we have that sort of misshapen comb of skill sets.
Yes.
So do you go, I mean, my struggle with synthesizing and reducing a key message about what I do is it fundamentally doesn't sound great. Basically, what I do is talk to people and come up with solutions, but you can't really sort of say that because it sounds so cliche and contrite. So what I'm really asking is, you've done, as you said, 9 different careers. I'm in a very similar boat. How do you reduce that into a key message?
That's right. What you want to do then is think about what are the typical solutions, what are the typical problems that you create solutions for? That's the first thing. Okay, start with the problem. So you've probably been in the industry a long enough time to know what are the most typical problems that businesses or individuals, I'm not sure what your line of work is, but you could probably go, this is the common theme or pattern. And so most customers maybe fit into these kind of categories here. And taking a step back and going, right, so what do I need to brand myself? Maybe make that umbrella a bit bigger then. And yes, part of what you do is talking to people and coming up with solutions, but that's oversimplification. What do you want to also look at is what is your process for creating a solution? And this is one of the things that I really help people go, well, they say, well, first I would do this, then I would do this, then I would do this, then we do this, then we test the solution, then we iterate it, then we do this. And if you actually define your playbook, how you do what you do, it's a good way of putting that into your brand as part of your brand message. So it's really about also decluttering your career as well. And that's a big problem. Imagine, when you're going through your career, the longer you've been in a career, the more clutter you've accumulated. And that clutter is something that stops us from seeing clarity. So what you want to do is you want to go, well, just because I've got all these skills and all this experience, I don't want to know everybody to know about them, that I just want them to know about this part here, and building that brand story just around that one part. Does that make sense? It means that you might have to be quite ruthless about how you go about positioning yourself as well. And it's about cutting out stuff that you don't want people, maybe that's not really relevant. Maybe it's stuff you did 10 years ago as well. But I think what you've done there is you kind of oversimplified it a bit. You probably want to figure out what it is, what are the conversations you have? You said you talk to people. Like, what is the nature of those conversations? What is the problems those people come to you to fix? What is your process? And what outcome can you help them produce as a result of you fixing that problem? All right. Hope that helps. Who's next? Great stuff. Anyone else brave enough to ask a question? It'd be great to see people if you could put your microphones on. I'd love to see who's on this call as well.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
I'd love to. Hi. Thank you so much for that. I thought it was really helpful, and it really gave me clarity in terms of, I guess, the point that you made in the presentation of curating your message and not necessarily feeling like you have to put everything into the message, or even into like your LinkedIn profile or your CV. And that's something that I've often felt a bit challenged by, because like when you look at your past roles, and you can bring a lot to the table.
Yes.
Figuring out, like, do potential future employees, would they want to see all this experience? Would they see value in it? Or do I really have to simplify it? But then when you're talking about like looking at yourself like a product, if you think about any product that you want to go out and buy, you want to make sure you clearly know what the thing is that you're buying. So that's kind of how I'm perceiving what you're saying here. I don't have to put everything I've ever done into the cell. Maybe I'm looking at an opportunity, or if I'm trying to figure out what my next move is, kind of working backwards from what it is that they're looking for, and packaging it up that way. Is that?
You nailed it. You've nailed it, Corinne. And you've just said it reverse. So I call it reverse engineering. Say, I want to be there. That's the space I want to play in. So how do I work backwards to get a message that is aligned with that? It's all about alignment. And that means sometimes going back in your CV and your LinkedIn and rewording the descriptions of the roles that you've had. So if you've got to say, if I want to work in that space, if I want to do that, where have I done that before? And how can I reword parts of my CV in the language that is used by someone in that role? As I said, don't brand yourself from where you've come from necessarily. Brand yourself for where you want to go. And that means going back and having a look at the language. You see, language is the big connector. We connect to language. Language paints our story. So it's curated. So yes, you may have done 10, 15 things in that role previously, but do you want to say all 10 to 15 things? Probably not. Maybe cut that role down a bit and going, I want them to know about these things because these are the things that relate to the role that I'm looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very clear, and that gives me clarity now as well, because I always felt the pressure of putting everything, but then it's confusing to somebody that doesn't. You want to make it as easy as possible for them.
You're right. I always say there's a saying in, I don't know if any of you guys follow any UX user experience design methodologies, but there's a key saying in UX that says, don't make me think. Because you don't want people to have to think to get their head around you. You want to basically offer yourself on a plate or a platter, all right? Not have to pick through and find all the key parts. It's like, I can see exactly who and what you are. I don't have to delve too deeply. You've done all the heavy lifting for me. Because the minute that someone has to use their imagination to figure out what you are and where you fit, you've lost control of the situation and the brand. You know, a lot of people go, well, hang on a second, surely if I say this, they'll understand what that means. Don't assume, don't ever assume, okay? Treat them like a 3-year-old, like you're reading a story to a 3-year-old. Just tell them everything, or not tell them everything, but make it clear. As I said, you want to be specific. All right. Good question, Corinne. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah,
all right.
thank you.
No, you're very welcome. Who else wants to go?
Cameron.
Hi,
Jonathan.
Take it away.
Yeah. Very good. That was great. I just decided to ask a question. It's sort of for everyone else on this call as well. Just the message, because you and I had a consultation some time back, and you were mentioning about that you can consider the possibility of doing like a recommendation swap to a previous.
That's right.
Hang on, I'll explain it. Like a previous colleague or
that's right. We were talking about
leader.
LinkedIn recommendation swaps.
Yeah,
yes.
Because gone are the days of where like people would go for endorsements or any of that. That doesn't seem to happen anymore.
That's right.
It's more recommendation swaps. What would be? What would be the best strategy in terms of going about a recommendation swap? Just to sort of get yourself known and sort of also be like still let people know that you exist.
Yes, exactly. It's keeping that front of mind.
Exactly.
That's it. Okay, so recommendation swap is really good if you first of all you want to choose your champions. Okay, recommendation swaps are really good if you want to bolster your brand, because it's not what you say about yourself that's important as what other people say about you as well. What I say is get together with some of your colleagues and say, hey, right now I'm boosting up my LinkedIn profile. It's really a branding exercise for me, and I would love, we've worked together, we're good mates or colleagues, and I was wondering if you'd be interested in doing a recommendation swap. I'll write you one, you write me one. And who's going to say no to getting a recommendation? And you can even do this with your manager. If you've got a good relationship with your manager, you can write one for them as well, because everybody's looking, for visibility and to get to that next stage. Now, here's the thing. If you ask someone to do a recommendation, you want to be able to control that recommendation. You don't want to tell them, hey, because sometimes people go, yeah, write it for me and I'll just chuck it on there. Yeah, you can do that. But one of the other things you can do is saying to make it easy for you to write that recommendation, if you wanted to use this bit of a framework, and then that means that because what happens with recommendations, people say nice fluffy stuff about you, but doesn't really do anything for your brand. They were awesome to work with. They turned up on time, really knowledgeable, blah, 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 blah. Instead of, hey, this is what they were. This is what they did. This is how they contributed. This is what's their area of expertise. So when I ask for a recommendation, I usually give a bit of a framework, and it's usually 4 bullet points around that framework. Like how, what was the project we worked on, for example? What was the nature of the work that I did? What did you feel that I excelled in from a technical perspective? What did you think my core skills were? Maybe it was these here. Help them as much as possible. Okay. This is about brand control. And go and find, and you want to be doing this when you're working in situations now, or if you're no longer working and maybe you've recently left, go back and find some of those people that you've worked with and go and collect some good recommendations. And here's another thing that I've seen people do is sometimes there might be an excellent phrase in a recommendation. Maybe 1 or 2 sentences, very quick one. I've seen people copy and paste those into their footer of their CVs as well. And then put who said it next to it. So it's basically a copy and paste of parts of that recommendation into your CV. Does that help, Cameron?
Yes, it does actually.
Good. Because what you want to do is you want to find your brand champions. People are willing to wave your flag for you. Cool. Anyone else? Happy to talk? Hey, Adrian, how you going, mate?
Good. It's great to see you again. I just wanted to thank you, of course, for all your great content that I've been following you for quite some time. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Obviously, this is a really great time for everyone, really, to redefine and repackage themselves, discover themselves, to really get that clarity, which I really think is absolutely really important for introverts, of course, particularly with articulation and so on. I was just wondering, for my next role, I'm looking for, I guess, a role that's very similar to what I've already done.
Yep.
But I want growth potential to be there. So I've got a very clear vision in mind of some of the things that I'd like to continue to do. I'm open to experimenting and trying different things, but there is a fundamental theme to the sort of growth I would like to have. Something around organizational development. How can I sort of sell, I guess, the idea or the vision of that direction without having necessarily had direct experience doing that, at least not in a professional sense?
Are you talking about when you're in an interview or something like that, when they said, what are you looking to achieve or something like that? Give me some context.
I'd probably say, that's actually a good question. I'd probably say across the board, but maybe at least in the cover letter. Okay. At least in the cover letter, I'd say. So probably more in the introduction stage. Very confident and happy in the interview. It's more just about sort of, I guess, on first meeting and sort of, maybe on the online context, maybe. Maybe the resume, actually. The resume.
Yes.
Is probably the biggest one. And then maybe like cover letter secondary.
What often happens is people want to go, okay, I love it when people think big. They're going to go, all right, I'm a junior now, but one day I want to be a CEO. Or they go so many roles into the future that it no longer becomes relatable. I always say brand yourself for your next role. And then when you've got that next role, update your brand for the next role and then update for the next one. So I would say, make it easier. Because if you go, I know I'm starting as a junior, but one day I want to be an executive manager. That's great. But figure out what the next role is. Otherwise, they're going to go, whoa, you're way off that now. Maybe you're not going to be that focused in this role, because they want to know that you're focused in the role. And yes, you are aspiring, but you want to be careful with that to some degree, because you don't want to go too far into the future where it just becomes blue sky thinking and dreamer. They don't want to know that they're hiring too much of a dreamer. They want to know they can get somebody and who's going to do it. So maybe go, hey, eventually I'd like to work my way up within the company and take on a position of leadership. Something simple like that at some stage, or be seen as the subject matter expert in this particular area. I would always say, be careful of being, and I know this is kind of counterintuitive, be careful of being too ambitious, where it no longer becomes relatable and people go, oh, you're dreaming. Okay. So even if you said in your cover letter, I'm looking for this role with the hope of progressing my career eventually into being seen as a subject matter expert or into some form of leadership and mentorship or something like that. You don't actually have to give a job title that I want to be the CEO or the executive manager or whatever that is. Does that help, Adrian?
Yeah, no, just I guess, following what you were saying about giving that clarity and that concreteness of what we do. So what you're kind of saying is that doesn't need to apply for the aspirational sort of prospects past that concrete role that we're focusing on in the next step. We can kind of just give a bit more of a general idea of that, and then just trust that, once we get to the next step, that the rest will be able to rebrand again.
That's right. That's right. When you're climbing a ladder, you take one rung at a time. Well, maybe two if you're feeling brave. The problem is that you want to be what they're looking for. You don't want to add too many dimensions to your brand where it becomes confusing. So I always say brand yourself. So if they're looking, let's say, I don't know what role you're looking for, but let's say it's a sales role. I don't know. I'm making it up. Brand yourself for that role. Align everything to that specific role that you're looking for. Okay. If you're saying and then say if that role represents a shape, let's say that shape is a square, metaphorically speaking. The sales role, it's a nice compact sales role. It's a square. I need to be a square to fit into that role. I need to have the same shape as that role. But if you're saying, I want to be doing this and I love doing this and blah, 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 you no longer become a square shape. You become a huge convoluted shape that's no longer going to fit into that square shape that they need you to be. And that's one of the biggest problems. Brand yourself, make it easy for them to get their head around you. Don't add too many complex dimensions because people are going to have to use their imaginations and you lose control of your brand. All right. One rung at a time. One rung at a time. Okay.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Don't be shy. I'm happy to stay on for another few minutes if you want.
Hi, Jonathan. I'm Ranga here. Well, so I'm a new migrant, and the thing is, I've been in QA or quality assurance, more on compliance, risk, things like that.
Yes.
But when I look at it here, the market is not there. So I had to fall back on my primary skill, which was testing. So when I look at testing, then again, I moved out 5 or 7 years back. So I'm of course outdated in the sense I've used some technical skills which are no longer required. There is a brand new upskilling that's required. So I do know what my focus area is, but it's kind of difficult to position myself to put in there. Of course, I'm trying to upskill and doing all that, but how do I always say, can I already say that I know these skills? Because the thing is, this is something that is lacking with me, and it is going to take some time for me to get up to speed because there's a suite of tools that's been required today in the market.
Yes. Are you talking about automation tools?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Common problem. Very common problem.
Yeah. So that's my question. So how do I position myself? Yeah.
You're going to have to basically, if you're in testing, and when I was in recruitment, I used to run testing desks. I used to hire a lot of testers. Where have you come from? Which country?
From India.
Okay. So India doesn't do too much around the automated testing space, whereas Australia does a lot. And here's the interesting thing, and I don't know if this is good news for you, unfortunately. Most testing jobs are outsourced back to India.
Yeah, I know that, yeah.
So basically you're competing with the same people overseas again. I know but here's an opportunity to pivot. Here's an opportunity to look at, a time for reinventing yourself, maybe. I mean, you don't necessarily want to go too far backwards. What other opportunities are for you there to leverage off your current skills? And sometimes it can just be rewording how you're positioning yourself. You may have a wealth of, and I'm almost certain that you do have a wealth of transferable skills. So looking broader within your industry and going, yeah, I can do that. I've done that. I just haven't done that in that space, but I have done that. And using the language of the job to reword your pitch. In other words, the biggest mistake that people make when trying to change careers or pivot is they use the language of where they've come from. That builds no bridges. You want to go and look at what language they're using in that industry and apply that language to how you're talking about yourself. Because as I said, language is the big connector. The other thing to do, obviously, is, you know, start getting into start looking at building your automated testing experience. I know you can get a free copy of Selenium, for example, and start learning that as much as you possibly can. But it is a competitive market because there isn't so much work out there for testing because it's outsourced.
Got it. The next question that I want to ask is, because I moved out of testing and moved into compliance, should I still keep that in my CV? Because it's definitely not going to, I don't know whether it is complementary or it is different, because I don't want to lie. At the same time, I don't want to make it a barrier for you know, getting selected. So that's the confusion that I have. Do I need to keep it like honestly what I did, or should I just position myself to say that, yeah, this is my focus area and this is where I want to be?
Do that. See, look, you know what? I believe in split testing. Try 2 versions of your CV. See which one you get the hits with. That's another one. We call that A/B testing, split testing. You know, try one and the other as well. Don't apply with both to the same job, because but try, okay, test it out. See which ones work. Another one to do is you probably want to. Do you know that only 20% of jobs are advertised? If you're looking online, you're missing 80% of jobs out there. You want to see, where are all the compliance people working at? What company hires compliance? And a simple LinkedIn search can help you figure that out just by typing the word compliance. And instead of clicking on jobs, click on people and then narrow that search down. Are you in Melbourne by any chance?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Within Melbourne, you could start looking and going, okay, where in Melbourne are all the compliance people working? Now I need to start approaching those companies directly.
It's mostly in Dandenong. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that close to where you are or not?
No, it's quite far.
Oh dear.
I'm on Northeast, but it's fine. I mean, I can
Yeah.
always if it's required. But the thing is, it's compliance as such itself is a very specific skill. And then when you look at the job market in Australia, it's even more specific. So it becomes really very tough to sell, because of course I have transferable skills. I have worked on many frameworks which are being used here.
Okay.
But then again, the problem is the job requirements, because they are too specific. It's very difficult, because they are saying, you know, you need to work on this, on this, and on this. But then again, it's very difficult to say that, you know, I've always worked only on that very skill. So that's where the problem comes, to say that, you know, to qualify myself into that.
Yeah, what a lot of times people do is they focus on the gaps, the things that they don't have when applying for jobs, as opposed to focusing their attention on everything that they do have. When I was a recruiter and I would be writing out job adverts, I would write I call that my wish list. This is what I wish for in a candidate. No candidates had everything, but if someone had 60 to 70% of the things, and at least if they had the mandatory requirements, then I could be flexible on those other things. And if you've got 60 to 70% of the things in the job, start applying, start having some conversations. Because in many cases, the people who applied for the job, whilst they had 60 to 70% for that advertised job, they may have 90% of something for another job that I haven't advertised yet. And in many cases, they get the job in the end, but not necessarily the one they applied for. Sometimes the job they get is way better than the one that was advertised. I just hadn't had a chance to advertise, or I didn't want to advertise it. You see? Yeah. So try that. 60 to 70% of the things. Use the language of those job descriptions as well.
Thank
All right.
you.
All the best. All the best. Who else? Who else wants to go? We still got 23 people on this call. That's awesome. So happy. Anyone else want to have a discussion, talk, or we can wrap up? All right. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much for today. I've had a ball. I've really enjoyed it. I've loved having you all on here. Hope you've got some really good value out of today, and you've learned some new techniques. Go out there, build your brands, go out there and attract that fulfilling career that you deserve. All right. I'm going to email you guys with the slides this afternoon and the invitation to work together. Remember, 24 hours for that special to help you get better at selling yourself. All right, everybody, take care. I'm going to be running another webinar in the next few weeks. I might do it on job seeking strategies. I'm not sure. Or I might be doing it on decluttering your career. Not quite sure which one I will go for. Depends. All right. Take care, everybody. And if you need any, if you're looking for hourly consults or want to chat, hit me up as well. All right, everybody. Take care.